How's it going, guys? It's Timmy Deck's MTG here, bringing you a deck tech for my favorite deck that I've built so far. The commander is Klauth, Unrivaled Ancient. This is a really big mana, big production, just a really big creature. It's a Timmy deck. Let's be for real. It's really, really fun to play, and I enjoy it a lot. So the commander is Klauth, Unrivaled Ancient. I'm going to pull this up a little bit closer. Let's get that focused in. So the commander is Klauth, Unrivaled Ancient. Flying in haste, 4/4 for a legendary creature dragon. 7 mana, 5 in a red and a green. So it takes a lot of mana to cast this creature, but it's really big and really impactful when it hits the field. So we have a lot of ramp in this deck. More artifact ramp than you would think for a green deck, but we do also have other land fetcher spells and stuff like that. Klauth has flying and haste. Whenever Klauth Unrivaled Ancient attacks, add X mana in any combination of colors, where X is the total power of attacking creatures. Spend this mana only to cast spells until end of turn. You don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. So we are going to get a lot of mana and cast a lot of spells. Most of our casting is second main phase, so we will be doing a lot of casting spells post-combat. He also does have haste, so he's going to pay for some of himself as soon as he comes out. So, alright, let's go through the deck. So I have this split up into card types, and we're going to start with the artifacts. So we will start with the artifacts here. So obviously Mana Crypt, extremely good card. It's expensive, so I wouldn't suggest it for everyone. You could replace it for a cheaper Mana Rock and still get along just fine. This is really the only bit of super fast mana that we have in here. We don't have any of the Moxes or anything like that, but we do have this, and we do have a Soul Ring. So these are big commander staples. Mana Crypt, obviously, like I said, pretty expensive, so you don't feel like you have to throw that in here. Soul Ring, extremely good card. Just it's mana positive, so a very, very good card. Don't really need to explain much about why I put that in here. Arcane Signet, also very good. Just 2 mana, get any of the colors we need, so it fixes us, and it's only 2 mana to cast. So Talisman of Impulse, same as Arcane Signet, might as well just be an Arcane Signet, but you take damage if you add colors, but that tends to be not that big of an issue. Thought Vessel, very good, just a colorless one, 2 mana, but you get no maximum hand size. Very, very good effect, especially in a deck like this. We want to be drawing a lot of cards, and we don't want to be discarding them. So, Commander Sphere adds a mana of any color in our commander's color identity. You can draw a card. The only 3 mana rock that I run in this deck, while I do run some other mana producing things that cost more mana, this is really the only rock that is more than 2. Bootlegger's Stash, here's one of those ones that I was talking about. 6 mana to give your lands the ability to create treasure tokens. Very powerful effect. Mana saving is really good in this deck, so we want to be able to, if we don't have to use our lands, we can just make treasures out of them. So the Great Henge, another kind of expensive card, so you don't have to put this in here, but really, really powerful effect. So you add 2 green mana, you gain 2 life, and you draw cards. So, and it costs less. It doesn't always have to cost 9, so it can cost less, down to even 2 possibly in this deck. So very good effect. Oh, knocked over my commander there. Vanquisher's Banner, really, really good card. Card draw. It is a dragon tribal deck, so you're going to name dragons when you cast this, and you're going to draw some cards when you cast them. Sword of Feast and Famine. This goes infinite with one of our dragons in here. This this is one of our things that allows us to get multiple combat phases. So we cast this, and we cast our other dragon. We can untap our lands, get more mana. Unfortunately, Klauth says that his mana can only be used to cast spells, so we can't use that to do our infinite combats combo, but is still really good, and this card lets us enable that combo while also just being an insanely powerful card. let's go into the enchantments here. We have a few really good ones. So starting things off with a Wild Growth, just a obviously really good card, 1 mana ramp. Bear Umbra, this also goes infinite with the same dragon that's in this deck, and that's the only infinite combo that we run is these 2 cards with that 1 dragon. So it doesn't pop off much, but it's a good card. So Bear Umbra untaps your lands as well. Guardian Project, more good card draw, just a green staple honestly. Grook's Uprising is also just good card draw, gives your creatures trample as well, so you can get damage in while also adding mana. Bower Passage, I love this card. It's 2 mana, and creatures with flying can't block creatures you control. So most of our creatures in here are flying, and not many people are playing Reach. So we essentially make them unblockable, and it's a very, very good card. Wild Pair is also a really good card. Lets you go get creatures from your library when you cast other creatures, so it adds the total power and toughness. So if you cast a 4/4, you can go get anything with total power and toughness 8, so you can go get a 2/6 or a 3/5, and it's really interesting. So let's go into the instants. We have a few, we don't have a ton, but we do have a few instants. Obviously Heroic Intervention is very good, very powerful card, keeps your stuff from dying, so want to throw that in there. Beast Within, just really good removal. Krosan Grip, also just really good removal for artifacts and enchantments. A lot of things can be problematic. Chord of Calling, this just goes and gets a creature out of our library and puts it right on the battlefield. With Klauth, we can pay their mana cost in X pretty easily, so very good card. Oh, and it has Convoke, so our creatures can tap for it, although I really never find myself doing that in this deck. Kindred Summons, this is a dragon tribal deck, so you can double your non-token dragons with this card, so very good. Magma Quake, standard board wipe. We get a lot of mana from Klauth, so we can deal that to all the non-flying creatures on the field. Savage Beating, get another combat phase, and give your creatures double strike. Unfortunately, double strike does not add double mana with Klauth, it just doubles the attack. So you're still going to add the same mana, but you're just going to deal twice the damage, because it only adds the creature's power instead of how much damage they dealt. So that's all our instants. Let's move into our sorceries. There's a few more of these. Start with Decimate. This one can be tough to pull off sometimes, but is still a really good card to play. Destroying 4 things for 4 mana is pretty good, but it does have to have legal targets for you to be able to play. So there has to be one of each of these things on the field for you to even be able to play it. So keep that in mind. Nature's Lore, just really good ramp. 3 visits is the same thing. Farseek is basically the same thing, but the land enters tapped, and you can't get a forest, but you can get like a mountain forest, so you can get your dual lands out with this. Balefire Recovery, just grab something from your graveyard, flips into a land. Very useful. Majestic Genesis, this card is really interesting. So you reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is the greatest mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield or in the command zone. You may put any number of permanent cards from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So most of this deck is permanents. You see that our instant and sorcery section is not very full. It's kind of small, so most of this deck is permanents, so we're going to get a lot of cards off of this. Tooth and Nail, another really good tutor. You can entwine it and go get 2 creatures from your library and just put them right on the battlefield, or 2 creatures from your library, put them in your hand, 2 creatures from your hand onto the battlefield. Kind of works the same way. So Jeska's Will, obvious red staple. I don't even think I need to explain that one. Vandal Blast, again another good red staple. Just destroy all those artifacts that are causing you trouble. World at War is another, take another combat phase, but it has rebound, so you get it again on your next turn. The converted mana cost of this deck is quite high, so but that's okay because our commander adds so much mana that it's alright to deal with that. Ugin the Spirit Dragon, very, very, very powerful board wipe, one of the best in the game, I think. That minus X ability is the one that I find myself using pretty much all the time. I rarely use the +2, and I've only used the -10 like once, and I've played this deck a lot, so really good card. Get rid of all those colored permanents. Also, our CMC in this deck is very, very high, so this doesn't really hit a lot of our stuff, which is really nice. So we keep a lot of our stuff around while getting rid of everything else. Domri, Anarch of Bolas is really good, so makes it so creatures get +1/+0. Creatures I control get +1/+0, and they so for each of those +1s, so that +1 will add another mana with Klauth. So we get more mana with that. He adds mana and makes it so our creature spells can't be countered. He fights stuff to remove things. He's an all-around good card, and only for 3 mana too. All right, now the big leagues. So we're gonna move into the creature section. There's a lot of these, so this is a heavily creature-based deck, so all those are creatures. Start with our Goblin Anarchomancer. Really simple, makes stuff cost less. Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. There's an interesting interaction with him and with Klauth. If you have just Wolfgar and just Klauth on the field, and you attack one opponent, he will double his own melee trigger, and he will also double the mana that you add from Klauth, because he'll give you that trigger again. So you'll add 20 mana with just these 2 creatures on the field, and then you can cast pretty much your whole hand there. So Savage Ventmaw, this one's really simple. Add 6 mana on attacks. Good creature. Atarka World Render gives your dragons double strike when they attack, so that's obviously really powerful. Thrakis, this one is really cool because this one doubles the power of dragons you control when you attack, so that does double the mana that you're going to produce with Klauth. So you're going to deal more damage, you're going to double the mana. That's a very good card in this deck. And this is the creature that goes infinite with those other 2 cards that I was talking about. So whenever Hellkite Charger attacks, you may pay 7. If you do, untap all attacking creatures, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. This does not give you another main phase between those combat phases, so you will have to take all those phases right in a row. But if you have 7 mana available from your lands, because you can't use Klauth's mana, if you have 7 mana available from your lands, you can go infinite with this and either Bear Umbra or Sword of Feast and Famine, because those will untap your lands, and you can pay for this ability infinite times, while also, if you have Sword of Feast and Famine, emptying your opponent's entire hands and making it so they can't deal with it. So you don't have to run that, but I like it. It's the only infinite in this deck. So Dragonspeaker Shaman, another one that just makes stuff cost less. Leyline Tyrant, there's 2 creatures in here that save your colored mana. Leyline Tyrant and Omnath, Locus of Mana. And they're just good cards in general. I like them in this deck because if you have extra mana, they're pretty low CMC as far as this deck goes. You can save your extra mana and wait until Klauth is out. So Moraug, this is another extra combats card. It gets you extra combats on landfall, but make sure that you play your lands on your second main phase. Otherwise, for your regular combat, you will have tapped creatures. So you have to make sure that you play your lands on your second main phase. Urabrask the Hidden, just a generally powerful card. Gives your creatures haste, makes your opponent's creatures enter tapped. So even if your opponent's creatures have haste, it won't matter because they'll be tapped. Dream Pillager, really good card. Gives you impulse card draw. If he gets pumped, you get more. Just a good card. Lathliss, very powerful. Lets you get more dragons than you should ever have. So doubles up your dragons. Really good card. Utvara Hellkite, similar idea as Lathliss, but this one makes it so when a dragon you control attacks, you create a 6/6 red dragon creature token. And it does not say non-token dragon you control attacks. So even those tokens that it's making is going to double themselves. Terror of the Peak is going to deal damage to stuff when things enter, and it's a dragon. This is just a really good card in any creature deck, but it's really cool that it's also just a dragon, so very good in our deck. Scourge of Valkas, this is removal on a dragon, which is really, really nice. It's going to be continuously doing more damage when more stuff enters the battlefield, more dragons enter the battlefield. So, Ancient Copper Dragon. This is a new one from the Battle for Baldur's Gate set. This one is going to make you tons and tons and tons of treasure tokens. So, very good card, although this one is quite expensive. So, if you're going to cut something for budget, I would cut this and the Mana Crypt very first. And one other card that I'll talk about later. Furyborn Hellkite. Most of our casting is on second main phase, so after we've done damage, so Bloodthirst 6, this is going to enter as a 12/12 with flying. And I like I like big creatures. Balefire Dragon. This one's kind of a lightning rod. It absorbs a lot of, it takes a lot of hate and gets targeted very quickly. It's a board wipe that you can do all the time. So every combat phase you can wipe the board if you need. It's going to deal 6 damage to all your opponent's creatures if it touches them. So your opponents might not like this card, so be prepared for this one to get removed. Steve, good ramp. Omnath, this is the mana saver I was talking about earlier. Old Gnawbone, we like treasures around here, so we're going to make more with this card. Also very good. Toski, Bearer of Secrets, and Ohran Frostfang have similar abilities. When your creatures deal combat damage, you're going to draw cards. So these are very, very good draw engines in this deck because it's all about attacking. Eternal Witness, just get something back from your graveyard, is very good. This is a really big win condition in this deck is Pathbreaker Ibex. So it's going to Craterhoof Behemoth every time it attacks. A little bit different than Craterhoof, but it's very good. So, love this card a lot. Apex Devastator, 10 mana, cascade 4 times, get a 10/10 on the field. It's just generally powerful, and when you cast it for what feels like very free, it's really, really, really fun. And then our last creature is Blightsteel Colossus. This one's really easy to cast in this deck, and it's very scary. So, shuffles back into your library if it would go to a graveyard. Trample, Infect, Indestructible, 11/11. Just a generally extremely scary card. All right, now let's talk about our land base here. So we're running 5 of each basic. So we got 5 mountains and 5 forests. I'm a pretty big fan of the Kamigawa forests and the Kamigawa lands in general. We got a Mosswort Bridge and a Bosaiju. These are just good utility in general, so just good cards. Here's our gold lands. We have Path of Ancestry, since it's a dragon deck, pretty good. Haven of the Spirit Dragon. This one can get you a dragon or your Ugin back to your hand if you need, if one of them's gone. Now given you would have to spare a land for it, so unfortunate for that, but it's a good card in the deck. Command Tower, obviously. Reflecting Pool is very good, just lets you get a red or green. Temple of the Dragon Queen. I don't usually like revealing this stuff in my hand, but this is it's kind of thematic. I really like it in a dragon deck, so good card. Temple of the False God, poor man's Ancient Tomb, so throw that in there. Reliquary Tower, another no maximum hand size, so just generally good. Strip Mine and Wasteland. I run both of these because Gaia's Cradle, Urborg, Coffers, those things exist, so you want to get rid of those pesky lands. We have a lot of dual lands in this deck because I'm scared of color fixing. So, got Karplusan Forest, Sheltered Thicket, Rootbound Crag, Mossfire Valley, Game Trail. I have the original dual. This is the other one that I was saying you should cut for budget. No one needs to run $400 lands in their decks, so don't. I just got this one for cheaper than I needed it. So, Cinderglade, Stomping Ground, Crag Crown Pathway, which flips into a green land. Grove of the Burn Willows, which is a really fun dual land that I like. Makes it so each of your opponents gain a life. Rockfall Vale, Firelit Thicket, Gruul Turf, Spire Garden, and then Wooded Foothills is the only fetch land that I run in this deck. I don't like running off color fetches in general, but this deck, I find in 2 color decks, you don't really need to run that many fetch lands, so I just run the one. And that is everything. So that is the whole deck for Klauth Unrivaled Ancient. I appreciate you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.